Hi, I'm Rachel Furlong, and this is a case study for the Missing Booster Club Funds for Module 16 for EDL 854. So, brief summary of what happened. Mr. Daniel Stevens is the principal at George Washington Middle School, and there's about 450 students, a smaller school, and they rely heavily on their parent volunteers since there's not an assistant principal or other administrators to help out. And the parents really do step up and do a good job of supporting the school and being active. The student population and the socioeconomic levels, they have started to go down, so there's a lot of poverty, and also the parents are moving out of town. Mr. Stevens is well liked by students, parents, and teachers. He's been doing a great job for the time he's been there. One of the parents that works with the PTO is Mrs. Alice Bowman, and she's a very involved parent and has had 3 kids go through the district. Her youngest daughter won an all-star award and for cheerleading, and they were invited to go to New York to be recognized and to ride in a parade. Well, the cost for that was about $800, and so she took a proposition to, instead of meeting with Mr. Stevens, to propose that the PTO donate the money to cover the charges. Mr. Stevens denied the request based on this would be a single student benefiting from the monies that were earned that were supposed to be supporting all students. So he declined the PTO donating the money. The following Monday, he hadn't seen her since this meeting. There was the last basketball game, and Mrs. Bowman was working the gates. Since there was the pre-printed tickets and the way they collected money, he felt that the procedures were enough that there wouldn't be a mishandling at that time. But then a run-in with Mr. Will Dumas. He attended the game and had a kind of a strange conversation about why he had a bunch of cash on him. But he said that since he just cashed his check, that he only had these high bills and he ended up paying with a $50 to get into the game. But when the game ended, it was time for Mr. Stevens to go get the money with the security guard. The security guard watched him count it. There was a note in there that 10 tickets were missing that were either ripped or damaged. And there were also 10 consecutive tickets were ripped or damaged. And that amount equaled $50. But also the $50 bill that Mr. Dumas said that he paid to get in with was not in the money collection. So that is the missing money scenario. Now looking at the Category 1 problem identification analysis. So what we know is there were procedures in place for collecting and counting the money, that he went and got it, the locked bag, went to the security guard. He also knew that there was a disgruntled parent overseeing the ticket as one of the volunteers at the ticket sales. And also there was a reported use of a $50 bill for payment. What we need to find out is which of the ticket collectors did Mr. Dumas give his $50 to. We also need to know who was working the gates. And also, with those 10 tickets, where were they discarded at? Where did they end up at? Are they in a trash can? Where did they go? And so the identified problem is there's a missing $50 bill. There was no clear procedures for turning in the tickets. So if there was a damaged ticket, to prove it, where did it go to? And there's also a disgruntled parent. So those are the things that we do know for looking at the situation. Now, proposing a plan of action, I think right away going in accusing a parent of stealing the $50 when we don't have actual video footage or proof that a $50 bill was paid with, that was what was said. So getting statements, I think first for the plan of action, you want to get statements from the volunteers. And the statements need to include what were their roles or responsibilities for the entire game. Where were they at the entire game? So if you knew, did you have the correct number of ticket collectors for accountability? I would ask also, did any of them receive the $50 bill for the ticket to get in and then give back the change? And what is their knowledge of the ripped or damaged tickets? Before the next game, this was the end of the basketball season, but before the next season starts, I would think that reviewing the procedures with all volunteers, but also include maybe a damaged ticket bag. So if there's a ticket that is either got water on it and you can't read it, it's ripped, somehow is not able to be used, and it goes into a bag, and it is documented that this ticket number, whatever, here it's in the bag, you turn that in with the money so you can account for tickets that were given and tickets that were damaged. And how it was handled, the beginning part of the story of the parent asking for funds for her daughter to help pay for her to go to New York to celebrate her achievements, which he did verbalize to the school. He vocalized to all the students her successes, which is great. But instead of just saying no, this is the black and white answer. Is there a way to talk to the PTO and say, hey, could you look at what other buildings or other districts who have a similar setup or similar concerns with financial supports for students? How do they handle it? Do they have a separate application that parents can go up and have a car wash? Can they do some kind of fundraiser on the side that's not connected to the school, but it's the parents and the students who may volunteer for that? But give some guidance to the PTO on looking at best practices from other buildings, because if you want to maintain the support and you want to maintain that relationship with families, you definitely cutting parents off when their students or their children need something. It may drive parents to make very poor decisions, like taking $50, but we don't know that, so we're not going to accuse anyone. We're just going to put some things into practice to help that not happen again. Strategies. You'd want to make sure that with the statements, you want to get a witness, whether it is a principal from another building, the superintendent. You want to have somebody who is there for what the witnesses report out on, so everything is documented correctly and not a he said, she said arguments. Especially this is kind of a touchy subject, as you're not really going to come out and blame a parent. You want to make sure that when the parents go through the training for the proper procedures and with the updated having a damaged ticket bag, that they have assigned documentation and you keep that filed somewhere. And that communication is timely and authentic and includes all stakeholders who need to know about the situation. Category 3, resolving the issues. What's best for students? So we want to make sure that parents are the driving force behind student achievement, whether it's positive or negative achievement. So making sure that when policies and procedures are changed or reviewed, and when working with things like parent groups, especially very involved parent groups, that the parents and the students still remain positive and have a positive outlook on the relationship. Keeping parents informed of policies and procedures, updates with the policies and procedures, and then give the PTO or other parent groups, if it's your site council, if they just come in and have maybe an informal meeting of what can parents do to support other parents. So you're taking the responsibility off of the school, because we don't want to set a precedent with the school of that if a student is in need based on what a parent states, that somehow that's going to be financially supported, because that's not realistic and is not following budget procedures and laws. So but we want to have time for that and encourage that with parents, and making sure we follow the legal means as well. And continuing to encourage the parent support and involvement and the positive school culture. So reflecting on how I was thinking, feeling, and what I value. What I was thinking is that he has such a great relationship with the teacher, with the families, and the students and the staff, that when a parent comes in need, it's automatic
telling them no, which I understand legally where he was coming from, but to encourage that and promote that family engagement, that maybe saying no, but let's have some conversations, or let's bring in some other people who may be able to help. So I was thinking that maybe, she did something out of desperation. I was thinking you never want to blame anyone. I really had the feeling that the principal could have handled things differently. I felt that things were in place, and that's always really important. But sometimes when you aren't thinking of the feeling side and the apathetic side of, the empathetic side of dealing with parents, I do value the principal's need to ensure the appropriate use of funds, and as well as celebrating the student achievements and encouraging. I really appreciate that and value the family engagement piece. I think what's gone unresolved is that the student still doesn't have enough money to go on the trip. And once you address situations like the money issue and change things, there's going to be questions of why that happened. And understanding that this parent could be mad, there could be rumors that are going around and some bad blood that could start to resonate with the other parents. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Now, looking at reflecting on Standard 8 and promoting student social and academic learning and the effective and efficient management of schools. So looking at effective and efficient management, I think having those protocols, make sure you're following the protocols for things like money collection and counting is really important for accountability and maintaining an appropriate budget. The support of parent groups and the school-wide positive culture, I think that has helped with the management of the school and everyone feeling very supportive. I think that although he didn't handle it the best, that following those guidelines and making sure parents understood that he followed guidelines was really important. For looking at the social learning of students, I appreciated that he recognized students. That student recognition really helps students feel like they're part of the school and part of the school community. And part of that is that parent piece too. So that's very key. And promoting that parent involvement by setting up specific activities during the day, I think that's really good for that social development of kids and having the parents brought in and working together and building that community. And for the academic learning, keeping parents involved in school as the achievement factor for students is key. And the implementation of best practices and utilizing parents when they come in or other volunteers to come in and help with academic success, and looking at other activities and making sure parents are informed along the way of what these are and what's going on and changes, that keeping that modes of communication is really important. Here's the references. I think this was a really effective assignment when I took the administrative test praxis. This type of case study was what we had to write about. And I think for those students who have not taken that praxis yet, this will be something that gives them a chance to look at a case study and look at all aspects of it when you're looking at the standards. So thank you.